שומעים אותי טוב?
כן.
Okay. So, sorry everyone. I thought from the computer is really better, but maybe from my phone. Okay, so the shiur, it's basically a continuous of, again, I just want to, I prefer to be connected from the Bluetooth, so I will try the Bluetooth. If it's not work well, tell me. Just a second, sorry for all the... Now you hear me the same, everything is okay?
Yeah, it's the same, it's good.
Okay. So last week, so I said that this shiur will be some kind of a continuous of what we learned last week, and like another deep level. This shiur, it's, in my view, is very interesting. It shows us how deep and how the details and the terms of in Ilchot Kashrut works. And this is one of the examples. It's called Nat Bar Nat. It's based on what is Ben Yomo. I think last week I explained what is Ben Yomo in short. So I will repeat few details from last week and we go to what we will learn today. So last week we learned that, let's say the Torah tells us that we're not allowed to eat a specific food. For example, we learned in the previous shiurim that we're not allowed to eat, for example, they should have fins and scales. Okay, so we are not eating shrimps, we are not eating crabs and all those kind of things. But the question is, if I cooked a natural food, for example, I cooked rice with shrimps, and now I just want to eat the rice, that there is there Torah prohibition for eating this rice or not? So we learned that the Gemara brought us a case from a Nazir, from a person that's not allowed to drink wine and eat grapes, that the Torah said that he is also not allowed, if he soak grapes in water, he's not allowed to eat this grapes, to drink this water. Why? Because the water got a taste of the grape and he's not allowed to eat grapes. So the Gemara learned from there, that in all cases of the Torah, if you have something that is forbidden and you didn't eat the thing itself, but you got the taste of it, so it's also forbidden. It's called ta'am keikar. It means that if you got the taste of a forbidden thing, it's considered as the real prohibition itself. Okay, this is what we learned last week. And what is Ben Yomo is? Ben Yomo is a term. You remember what is Ben Yomo? What? So I will repeat Ben Yomo. Ben Yomo means if you cooked with this vessel on that day, like Yom is day, Ben Yomo is like, I don't know, the son of the day, like it means that it was used on that particular day. So now for Nat Bar Nat. Again, we know this is the previous knowledge we need to have to understand this continuous, that even if you didn't eat the forbidden thing, if you got the taste, we learned last year that it's also forbidden. Now the question is, we understood if you got the taste of, you cooked, like I said, for example, shrimps, you cooked the rice with shrimps together, the rice got a taste of the shrimp. Even if you just eat the rice, you got the prohibition of a Torah of eating shrimps because the rice had a shrimp taste. Now the question is, if I cooked shrimps in a vessel and after that I rinsed the vessel and I cooked rice with that vessel, not together, but with the same vessel. So the question is if it's prohibited also or not. Okay? Or if I cooked meat in a vessel, I rinsed the vessel, and now I cooked milk, or I cooked, I don't know, rice. So does it becoming basari or not? You understood me? Okay. So the Gemara, we will learn that there is a difference between basari and chalavi, meaning meat and dairy, and other normal prohibition. So now we will learn about something called nat bar nat, and we will learn that this is also just apply for meat and dairy. Okay, so right now it will be applied all those things for meat and dairy, and not for real like shrimps or pig or any non-kosher animals, or without of shchita and so on. So it works like that. Like all our shiurim, we're starting from the beginning. What is the first source we have, and we will like see the discussion that the previous rabbis has about that makor, that איך אומרים? Okay,
Stairs.
thirst. Thank you very much. So the Gemara in Chulin, Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Bet, the Gemara in Chulin 111, page 2. The Gemara said like that. I read in Hebrew and I will translate. The Gemara said, Itmar, דגים שעלו בקערה. So the word by word translation is they were discussed about a fish that was removed to a bowl. This is the words. רב אמר, אסור לאוכלן בכותח, ושמואל אמר, מותר לאוכלן בכותח. So a fish, halachically, from the perspective of basar b'chalav, from prohibition of eating meat and dairy, fish has nothing to do with that. There is a separate discussion if we allow to eat meat and fish and milk. Some says it's dangerous, but it have nothing to do with the halachot of basar b'chalav. Okay, it's a new thing we discussed about that, but it have nothing to do for halachot basar b'chalav. So here the Gemara just talk about basar b'chalav, and everyone know that fish is not considered meat for the prohibition of eating it with dairy. Okay, if somebody eats fish with milk, there is 100% consensus that there is no prohibition. The only thing is some say it's dangerous. So now the Gemara asks, if you put fish in bowl, a meat bowl, a fleshik bowl, okay? So Rav said, you're not allowed to eat this fish with a dairy, with a milchik dish, okay? And Shmuel said, you do allow. Rav explained itself. Rav said, we learned on the previous shiur, and also the Gemara said before, that if you got the prohibition taste, you're not allowed to eat it. So Rav said, look, it was on a meat plate, meat bowl. So maybe it's got the taste of the meat. So now you're not allowed to eat it with dairy because you will have a taste of meat and dairy together. But Shmuel said, noten tam bar noten tam. Shmuel said, look, when we said that if you got the taste of the non-kosher thing, it's prohibited, is when you got the direct taste. Meaning, you cooked, like the example I brought, you cooked, I don't know, shrimps with rice, so you're not allowed to eat this rice because the rice got a taste of a shrimp. Or, in closer to our situation, you cooked a rice with meat, you really cooked it, and now you want to eat this rice with cheese, I don't know. So the meat really, like the rice really observed direct taste from the meat. This is what Shmuel said. But Shmuel said, look, if I had a pot or something and I put the fish on that meat pot that milk fleshy pot and or bowl. I don't know what they're not clear about what they're talking. We'll see the discussion. And after that, I took that and I eat it with milk. It doesn't got the direct taste because the meat brought taste to the bowl, and the bowl, the vessel, brought taste to this fish. So you have like two ways till it's got to the fish. Okay, it's called noten tam, bar noten tam. It's called like he got a taste from the sun, like it's not direct. Okay, and he said if it's not direct taste, you're allowed to eat it with milk. And the Gemara said that the bottom line is the halacha, the rule, the bottom line of this halacha is like Shmuel, meaning that if the taste is not a direct taste, you're allowed to eat it with milk. This was clear, or somebody has a question you want to ask? No, everything is clear. Okay. Okay, so now we have three approaches. So this is what the Gemara said, but now we have three approaches in the Rishonim. So the Gemara, it's like almost like 1,500 years ago, something like that. And we have like 1,000 years, between the 1,000 years ago to 500 years ago, it's considered generation of the Rishonim, those rabbis. And there we had, in general, we can make it three approach how to understand this Gemara, and this is affected halachically also for us. So I told you the Gemara used words of like the oral law said, if you remove fish from a bowl, so do you allow to eat it with milk or not? This is the question. Now, what they mean from a bowl? What was in that bowl? Does they cook it in that bowl? Like that? When you say bowl, you mean a pot, or you mean it's just touch a meat bowl, or what was the case exactly? Okay, because we want to know what is the case that it's okay according to the bottom line of the Gemara. If you did it with a basari, with a meat bowl, you're allowed to eat this fish or this rice or this natural food with milk. So we will see those three approach. So on that page, on the Chulin 111.2, the Tosfot brought down Rashi. Rashi said like that, דווקא עלו שרו, אבל נתבשלו אסור דכחד טעמה חשיב. So Rashi explained, just in a case that the fish were removed or somebody put it on a bowl of a meat bowl, so okay, you're allowed to eat this fish after that with milk. But if you cooked this fish on a meat pot, so you're not allowed to eat it with milk. This is how Rashi understood the Gemara. Okay, Rashi said, what was the case that the oral law said you do allowed? The oral law said if you remove it from a bowl. What they mean? Rashi understood they mean you just put it in a bowl. I don't know, just after it's cooked or before, you just put it on a meat bowl. Now you just want to eat it with milk. Okay, no problem. But if you cooked it, you really cooked it in a meat pot, you're not allowed. This is the first approach. This is how Rashi, Rivan, and Tosfot brought it down. This is how those Rishonim understood the oral law, the Gemara. So they're the most strict about it. And we will see after the difference in Sfaradim and Ashkenazim and how Ashkenazim follow that and those follow that. At the other hand, the Bet Yosef, he brought down Siman Tzadik Hey, he brought down few big rabbis, has the Rashba and Agaot Asheri and so on, that they understood exactly that. They say like that. They said, look, what they understood the Gemara, that the Gemara talked about when you cook a natural food as a fish or rice or I don't know what, that it's not milchik and not fleshik, it's not meat and not dairy. So let's say, for example, you took the fish and you cooked it in a meat pot. This is how they understood the words of alu beke'ara. So now, the bottom line of the Gemara said you allowed to eat it with milk. Okay, so according to them, according to the Rashba in Aran and the Rishonim of Beit Yosef Prat, if you have a meat pot and you rinse it, now you cooked with this pot fish or rice, now you want to eat it with milk or dairy stuff, no problem. Why? Because this fish didn't got direct taste from a meat. This fish got the taste with two steps. Like the meat brought taste to the vessel, and the vessel brought taste to the fish. So in that case, the Gemara said you're allowed to eat it with dairy. This is the lenient approach. And the Bet Yosef said that all those rabbis did not make a distinction between cooking and roasting. Okay? According to them, the only place when it's prohibited is when it's got the direct taste. For example, if you took fish and you cook it with meat, and now you want to eat it with dairy, you're not allowed because it's got direct taste. But if it's not a direct taste and you just cook meat in a pot, wash the pot, now you cooked fish in it and you want to eat the fish with dairy, or if you roast it, for example, you had a barbecue or something, you put meat, after that you put fish, and you took this fish and you want to eat it with dairy, you also allowed. Okay, this is the other approach of the lenient rabbi as the Rashba, Ran, and Minyan. But we have something in the middle. We have a rabbi called a Rosh. He had an interesting story. He started as an Ashkenazi. He ran from France, and he became the big rabbi of the Sephardim after the Rashba passed away. It's a very interesting story, a long one. And so he was Ashkenazi, the rabbi of the Sephardim, and his son considered Sephardi, and the Shulchan Aruch based his book on his son too. I like it because it shows that when the Rashba was the rabbi of the Sephardim, he saw that this Ashkenazi guy, he is a huge Talmid Chacham, so he basically just put him to be the rabbi after him. So he said like that. This Rosh, this rabbi said, 600 years ago approximately, he said like that. If, he said, he's not understanding like Rashi. Rashi said if you cooked it, you're not allowed to eat it with milk. But a Rosh make a distinction between cooking and roasting. The Rosh said like that. If you roast a fish on a meat vessel, you're not allowed to eat this fish with dairy. But if you cooked the fish in a meat vessel, you're allowed to eat it with dairy. Okay? Again, he is making a distinction between cooking and roasting. He is saying, not like Rashi. Rashi said, if you cook it, if you roast it, I don't care. If you did it with a meat pot, you're not allowed to eat it with milk. The only case you're allowed to eat it with milk if you just put it there. You didn't cook it. You just placed it there. And the other Rishonim said, we don't care if it didn't got a direct taste, if you just cooked it in a meat pot, because it didn't got the direct taste, it's allowed. The Rosh said there is a difference. There is a distinction. If you cooked it, it's okay. If you roast it, it's not okay. And the Rosh explained itself. I will read it in Hebrew. Okay, I will read it in Hebrew. Just a second. ספר התרומה התיר ירקות וקטניות שנתבשלו בקדרה בת יומה חולבת, רק שתהיה נקייה מחלב לאוכלן בתבשיל של בשר. ואפילו אם נאמר אם ניצלו לו, כשנתבשלו שער, משום דאיכא ג' נותני טעם, חלב בקדרה והקדרה במים והמים בירק, ועודנו היתר. וכן מסתבר, דנתבשלו לי כטעם שלישי ושרי, אבל ניצלו אסור. He said like that. he is saying, if you roast something, so it's not a direct taste, it's two-step till it's got the taste. You had a barbecue, you roast meat, now you clean it, now you put fish, so the meat brought taste to the barbecue brought taste to the fish. It's not a direct one, but it's two. But he said, think about, for example, about French fries. Okay, this is the good example. French fries, let's think that you use a pot, you cooked meat in that pot, you rinse the pot, now so the meat brought taste to the pot. Now you put oil in the pot, and after you put oil, you put the French fries, the potatoes. So he said like that. The meat brought taste to the vessel, to the pot. The vessel brought taste not to the French fries. It's brought taste to the oil. The oil brought taste to the French fries. This is how the Rosh understands. So the Rosh said the reason why the Gemara said if you cooked it, it's okay. It's not because they have two steps to the taste, because they have three. He said, if you cook meat in the vessel, it's the meat brought taste to the vessel. Now the vessel brought taste to the oil or the water, and that oil or water brought taste to the food. So that food, when you want to eat it with dairy, it's okay. But if you want to use roasting, so it's just two-step, and two-step is not allowed. He think it's prohibited. So you understood. So now we finished those three major approaches in the Rishonim. We had Rashi, the most strict one. We have the most of the Rishonim, the Rashba, the Ran, and some understood the Rambam and so on, that said that there is no distinction between cooking and roasting, all option, because it's not a direct taste you allowed. And we had the Rosh. The Rosh said there is a distinction between cooking and roasting. In roasting, he understood like Rashi, that you're not allowed to eat it with milk. But if you cooked it, he understood as the Rashba and the Ran, and he said you do allow. Okay, till here it's clear? אוקיי. כן, רות, את חושבת שזה ברור? מרגיש לי שזה...
נראה לי שכן, אבל אתה יודע, בזום שואלים פחות.
אוקיי. הלאה. Oh, here there is, I talked about that in short.
אולי תשאל אם
but
הם
I would
רוצים
just...
שתחזור על משהו מסוים מכל השלבים שהסברת, יש משהו שרוצים שתחזור.
Yeah, if somebody wants me just to repeat one part, tell me, because I want to go another step. So now we finish the Rishonim, the approaches, and we will go like to the Shulchan Aruch and the Rama, how each one understood, and now after that arguments about how they understood them. Just want to make sure that it's clear these three approaches. If somebody wants to repeat one of them or something, just tell me, feel free 100%. We have time. Okay. So now you can put it in bracket, but it's important. The Ran, is one of the rabbis at the time of the Rishonim. He just say something important, had nothing to do with those three approach we learned, but he just said that we should make sure that all what we talk here, all the leniency about what's called nat barnat, not a direct taste, it's just apply for meat and dairy, and none for other non-kosher stuff. I will not go to the reasons behind, but I just explain what he said, because this is also halachically no argument about that halachically. He said there is a distinction between non-kosher thing, what we called nat barnat deisura. Nat barnat is the short for noten tam, bar noten tam, like two steps for the taste. So nat barnat deisura, it means if you cooked shrimps on a pot, like I said, you rinsed this pot, you cooked rice, now you want to eat that rice, and you said, look, it doesn't got a straight taste, it's not allowed. This is called nat barnat de isura. The only place there is a leniency is on basar bechalav, and meat and dairy, because meat and dairy, I said again, not going to the sources, but meat and dairy is considered more leniency because meat itself is, how to say, it's something that we are allowed to eat. What's the word? Not forbidden, the opposite.
It's we're allowed.
There is a word.
Permitted.
Permitted. Thank you very much. So, so meat, I appreciate it. Meat is something that we are permitted to eat, and also dairy. And also dairy is something we are allowed to eat. Okay, so it's considered a more leniency halachically. So the Ran just said, and it's important. I said everyone agree about that. Like the halacha, the bottom line is like that also. That all what we're learning now just apply for basar bechalav, for meat and dairy, and not for non-kosher thing. Okay, non-kosher thing, even if it's not a direct taste, it's a sur. There is other thing that maybe can be mutar, but not barnat de isura is not good. The only thing that is good, it's what we call nat barnat de hetera. Nat barnat de hetera, it's like what we're talking about is like not a direct taste between kosher thing as meat and dairy. Okay, this is just a quote from the Ran. Very important. Okay. Now I'm going to the Shulchan Aruch and to the Rama. So the Shulchan Aruch, he was like at the end of the generations of what we call the Rishonim. He didn't argue with the Rishonim. He just saw all the approaches and he tried to make a rule and a bottom line to know what to do halachically, okay, to make some kind of a constitution, I don't know, something like that, like laws. And normally the Sephardim follow the Shulchan Aruch and Ashkenazim following the Rama. They're in the same book nowadays. The Rama just put comments on the Shulchan Aruch itself. The Rama started to write a book when he realized that the Shulchan Aruch established before him the same kind of book. So he just buried his book and he put comments at that. They both wanted the Jews, Ashkenazim, and Sephardim to have like the more common laws that make it like that it will be in the same book of laws and so on. So the Shulchan Aruch said, in יורה דעה סימן צדיק ה', דגים שנתבשלו או שניצלו בקדרה של בשר רחוצה יפה. The Shulchan Aruch said, if you had fish and they were cooked or roasted, he put it together. He didn't understood like a rosh, like what we learned before. He understood, as the most of the Rishonim, that there is no distinction between cooking and roasting. He said, if you had fish that were cooked or roasted in a pot, bikdera shel basar rechutza yafe, in a pot of a meat pot that was washed properly, she'en shum shuman dvuka, that you don't have how to say fat? Thank you. Yeah, shuman, like fat, stuck on the pot. Basically, like a clean vessel, like what we use normally now. So you're allowed to eat it with dairy. Mutar leochla bekutach. Kutach, if somebody wants to know, it's a famous dish that the Gemara and the Halacha brings down a lot of time. It's like it's a dairy dish. And when they want, many times when they want just to tell you dairy, I don't know why, they don't tell you dairy, they just use kutach, because it was a famous something that people like to eat with other foods. So when they say kutach, it's I think a disgusting dish, but it's, if you want, I will tell you, it's something like old bread with a lot of salt and with milk. Some even say that it's like 1-3% of it is is salt or something like that. I don't know till it sounds like, and after you take it
And
out,
so
I
then
don't
you
know.
don't have money and your mom said that it's tasty.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's a very famous one. So if you see in Halacha Kutach, normally they just want to tell you dairy, but this is the terms they use. So the Shulchan Aruch said, you just remind me something. When I was in the yeshiva, so we had a term called Ktitzot Elokim. How do you say Ktitzot? Ktitza. Somebody knows how to say Ktitza? Ktitza, it's when you take like grounded meat with with vegetables or something, you make it like that, and you fry it or something like that. You make it like a hamburger, kind of hamburger. How do you say it? Tell me, I don't hear it.
Like a patty?
A patty?
Meatloaf?
Just a second. I will check this again. Google say hamburgers. I don't know. Okay. So we had something called Tzitzat Elokim. You know why it's called God hamburger? We said because just God knows what you have there. After Shabbat, they were taking all left, mixing it, telling you this is the recipe, and now just eat it. We really had it in most of like the schools, yeshivot or something. They don't want to lose food, and they don't want to put a lot of money. We call it קציצת אלוקים. רק אלוקים יודע מה יש בפנים. So the Shulchan Aruch said that fish that were cooked or roasted in a meat pot that was clean, you allowed to eat it with dairy. This is the Shulchan Aruch rule, no problem. You used a meat pot, but it's clean, you're allowed to eat it with dairy. The Shulchan Aruch said, but if it's not, ואם לא הייתה רחוצה יפה, אם יש בממה שעל פי הקדירה יותר מאחד ב-60 בדגים, אסור לאוכלם בכותח. Now, the Shulchan Aruch said, but if you had a meat pot that was not clean, okay, so you had fat stuck on it or stuff, and you cooked fish or rice. So if this fat that left in the pot is less, the ratio is less than 160, then the food you cooked, so it's parv, you're allowed to eat it with dairy according to the Shulchan Aruch ruling. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch was lenient in that. The Rama was more strict, and we will learn now the Rama. Yes, there is a difference between Ashkenazim and Sfardim to that, and when you will go after that, another steps. I think you said something about sink and also about having basically 3 vessels of what's called parv. It will be built on that if you need parv or not, or you just need 2 kinds. It's everything connected to that. Just a second. מותר? יופי. And the Rama said like that. The Rama in the same place. So we learned the Shulchan Aruch rule. The Shulchan Aruch said, if you cook it in the meat pot, you're allowed to eat it with dairy. No problem. It's not a direct taste. That's it. The Rama said, ויש מחמירים בצלייה ובישול לאסור נותן טעם בר נותן טעם. The Rama quote, he said like that. There is Rishonim that said that if you roast it or cook it in the meat pot, you're not allowed to eat it with dairy. If somebody remembers which Rishon said that the Gemara just talk about when you just replace it on a plate. or on the bowl, on bowl. But if you cooked it or roast it, you're not allowed. Somebody remember? You said, I saw your lips. You said Rashi Baruch, right?
Yeah, Baruch said
Uh,
Rashi. Well done, Baruch.
Rashi, yeah, correct. Well done, yeah. So amazing. So the Rama said, look, there is rabbis that says that if you cooked it together, you're not allowed. So he said, והמנהג לאסור לכתחילה, בדיעבד מותר בכל עניין. So what the Rama said? The Rama said, look, there is argument. There is disagreement. Many rabbis said you're allowed to cook it in a meat pot, to cook this fish or this natural food in a meat pot, and after that to eat it with dairy. But we have Rashi, that Rashi said that we're not allowed. Okay? So we said, ideally, we don't do it. Ideally, you don't do that because you want to, how do you say, lachshosh, like to say maybe Rashi is correct. And if you did it already, so you have many other rabbis that says that it's okay, even ideally. So if you did it already, like after the fact, it's okay, you can eat it, but ideally don't do it. This is, the Rama said, was the custom of Ashkenazi. Okay? Now the Rama said like that. ודווקא לאכול עם חלב והבשר עצמו, אבל ייתן בכלי שלהם מותר לכתחילה וכן נהגו. So he said, look, if you cooked a natural food, rice, fish, I don't know, in the meat pot. So he said their custom was ideally not to eat it with dairy. He said this is just if you want to eat it with dairy. But if you don't want to eat it with dairy, the only thing you want is just to put it on the vessel of dairy, okay, just use dairy vessels, it's okay. Like, don't take it so far. This is basically what the Rama said. And he said another option, וכן אם לא נתבשלו או ניצלו תחילה, רק עלו בכלי של בשר, מותר לאוכלן עם חלב עצמו וכן להפך. He said, also, if you have a case of you didn't really cook this fish or natural food as rice and so on with a meat pot, you just put it on the meat vessel, you're allowed to eat it with dairy, according to everyone, right? Even according to Rashi. So this is you're allowed to do also, ideally, according to the Rama. Okay? So you understood the Shulchan Aruch ruling and the Rama ruling, the Shulchan Aruch basically the Sephardim follow, and the Rama, this is what the Ashkenazim follows. Clear? Okay, I will repeat in short just what they say because I want to tell you that there is huge disagreement about how to understand it. Okay? So in short, the Shulchan Aruch said even ideally you're allowed to, if you cooked, or ideally you're allowed to use vessel of a meat vessel, cook how do we say, natural food and eat it with dairy. And the Rama said ideally you're not allowed, but after the fact, if you did it, you're allowed to eat it, right? This is what we learned. The question is, what is considered ideally and what is considered after the fact? I will give you the example that it's not clear at all. If, for example, you to eat omelet with cheese, it's something that is normal, right? People do it, right? So let's say you cooked omelet in a meat pot. You did it already. You cooked it in a meat pot. Now you ask if you allowed to eat it with dairy. Some will tell you, look, it's considered after the fact because you cooked it already. You want to eat it with dairy. This is your plan of dish. You already cooked it in a meat pot. It's considered after the fact, okay? But some will tell you, no, this is not after the fact. After the fact is just after you mixed it together. after you mix this omelet with dairy. But if you didn't mix it yet, it's not after the fact, because right now nothing problematic happens. To have a omelet that was cooked, a part of omelet that was cooked in a meat pot, it's not a problem at all. Just eat this separately, the omelet separately, and eat the dairy separately. So some will tell you this is considered ideally. Now, if you already cooked it in a meat pot, so now ideally don't mix it with dairy. But if you mixed it already with dairy, this omelet, you're allowed to eat it. Okay, you understood the problematic of understanding where it's after the fact and where it's ideally. Okay, like we all agree that the Shulchan Aruch said ideally you're allowed to do it. The Rama said ideally not, after the fact you do. The question between the rabbis we will see is just each one understood differently what is ideally and what is after the fact in that case. Okay, so the Shach, he was a big Ashkenazi rabbi. He said, I will read his words. He said, he quote from the Rama. The Rama said, the Rama said the custom is to say, ideally it's prohibited, but if you did it after the fact, you're allowed. So he said like that. והמנהג לאסור לכתחילה לאכול בכותח, ובדיעבד מותר אם נתן בכותח. The Shach explained like that. The Shach said, if you mixed it with dairy already, okay, so after the fact, you're allowed to eat it. What he basically tried to say is that after the fact is not after you cooked the omelet or the fish, because nothing happened yet. If you mixed it with dairy already, and now you have either to put it in the garbage or to eat it, so it's considered after the fact, and the Rama tell you have enough rabbis to rely on that they say that even ideally you're allowed to do it. So don't put it in the garbage, eat it. But if you just cook this omelet, eat it by itself. Don't mix it with dairy. This is how the Shach understood. Okay, and I must say that it's not just Ashkenazim. Even in Sephardi, there is some understood like that, some understood like that. The Ben Ish Chai and the Kaf HaChaim, they were famous Sephardi rabbis. They also understood like that. They understood like the Shach. They understood that before, like ideally, it's after you cooked it, but before you mixed it with dairy. And after the fact, it is after you mixed it already. Okay? So, and now after we understood that, it depends if you go by the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch or the Rama. According to the Shulchan Aruch, you're allowed to do it ideally. According to the Rama, just after the fact. Okay? This is how the Shach, the Ben Ish Chai, and Kaf HaChaim, and many more understood. But the Likutei Yosef brought down many Achronim, Rav Ovadia basically. Rav Ovadia hold that ideally it means to cook, and after the fact it means after you cooked, not after you mixed it. This is how Rav Ovadia understood. Rav Ovadia understood ideally means that you just don't need to have a par vessel. It means ideally it's not a direct taste, so you don't need to care. And what it means ideally, Rav Ovadia understood, it means ideally you're allowed to have 2 vessels, because you need vessel for meat and vessel for dairy. Now you want to cook omelet or fish and to eat it with dairy, no problem. You can use also ideally the meat ones if this is what easier for you. And after that you can eat it or with meat or with dairy, whenever. This food is parv. Okay? This is how Rav Ovadia understood. And what is considered b'diavad for the Rama, according to Rav Ovadia, how Rav Ovadia understood the Rama, what the Ashkenazim should do is like, ideally, Rav Ovadia understood if you're Ashkenazi, you should have a parv or vessel or something like that. If you want it to be parv, you should have a parv vessel. But if you cooked it already in a meat pot and now you want to eat it with dairy, you're allowed. If you did it already, if you did it means if you cooked it already. Okay? This is clear yet or? מה את אומרת, האישה שלי?
שואלים אם זה
לא
ברור
ראיתי.
או
כן?
להם. אתה לא ראית שהם מעניינים? הם מעניינים.
Okay. Okay, so to go from that, we have another, if it's clear, we have another few steps. And there is, I think, two major important things. All what we talked here talks about, how do you say? A ben yomo pot, okay? A ben yomo pot, it means that when I said a meat vessel is a vessel that in the last 24 hours you cooked meat with it, okay? If it's, so all what we talk is when you use that in the last of with that 24 hours, what's called, it's ben yomo. But if it's not ben yomo, the whole story, it's much more easier halachically, okay? Like when Rav Ovadia said you're allowed to do it ideally, it's even ben yomo. Even if you used now, you fried, I don't know, schnitzels, you washed it, you want to fried omelet, to eat the omelet with the milk, with cheese or something, according to Rav Ovadia, you're allowed to do it ideally. And according to Rav Ovadia, that we following the Shulchan Aruch, the Sfaradim, you're allowed to just to do it. And according to the Kaf Chaim and the Ben Ish Chai and the Shach, ideally means don't, like, how do you say? Ideally, it's not, it doesn't mean to cook it. It means to mix it after you did, and b'diavad it's to eat it after it was mixed. And according to and the Ben Ish Chai, and maybe I didn't make it clear. So we had a Shulchan Aruch and the Rama. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch said ideally you allow. The Rama said just after the fact. Shach, the Ashkenazim Shach, goes after the Rama. He's anyway understood that you're not allowed to do it ideally, just after the fact. Now, he just argue about what is considered ideally and what is considered after the fact for Ashkenazim and for Sephardim, because the Shach understood that according to the Shach, he was Ashkenazi, so for him, ideally, you're not allowed to do it. But he understood that ideally means to mix it after you cook. And for him, even if you cooked it already, it's considered ideally, so you're not allowed to mix it. Just if you mix this omelet or this natural food with milk already is in the same dish, you mixed it, so you're allowed to eat it. But Ben Ish Chai, he agreed to the Rav Ovadia and Ben Ish Chai are both agreeing that we are following the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch said ideally you're allowed to do it. So the Ben Ish Chai also agreed that the Shulchan Aruch, you said we're allowed to do it. But he said, he understood that means ideally means to mix it after you cook, not also to cook it. Okay, this is the things, there is disagreement inside the Sephardi. So according to the Rav Ovadia, it make it almost not so necessarily to have parve dishes, but in the Sephardi we also have, like I said, some like a Ben Ish Chai that understood that ideally that when we said ideally you allowed, we don't mean to cook. Okay, so according to the Ben Ish Chai, anyway, you will need to have 3 dishes. And Rav Ovadia said "V'amachmir tavo alav bracha," meaning he understood that halachically it's okay, but if you want to be more strict, you should be blessed or something like that. Now I said all this apply to ben yomo, to when you cooked in the same day meat with this pot. But when you didn't cook the same day meat, it's considered not ben yomo and is much more lenient. And for us, for Sfaradim, it's make it like you can do it ideally without any problem if it's not ben yomo. And for the Ashkenazim, some also said that also for us in Ashkenazim you have a few like level of how much you strict. Some said if it's not ben yomo, you're allowed to do it ideally like Sfaradim. This is basically how the Rama said. If the only thing I talked about is when it's ben yomo, but if it's not ben yomo, you're allowed to do it ideally. Okay. And nowadays, or maybe also back in the days, but it depends where you live and how much vessel you had. I think now many people in most cases not using their vessels every day. So most of the time it's not ben yomo. People either have few vessels, unless you just moved to Canada and you just bought one pot and the first week you came, so you use the same pot. But normally people have few pots, few pans, few that, each one for other situation, and you use it once or twice a week, each one of them. If you go like, I don't know. So most of the time it's not ben yomo, but it depends on your house and your living. If you don't remember, we have a law that says stam kelim enam bnei yoman. This law means that if you don't remember, normally it goes by, if you don't remember if you use it or you don't know, most likely you didn't use it on the last 24 hours. This is another rule to know. It's called stam kelim enam bnei yoman. Now, we have maybe another small level, but also important to know. This is called davar charif. We talked about noten ta'am nifgam, אני כבר לא זוכר, I don't remember. We talked about noten ta'am nifgam, somebody remember? Noten ta'am nifgam is when the non-kosher things brought a bad taste and not a good taste to the food. We talked, right? So we said that if it's brought a bad taste, so it's not prohibited. It's even mutar. The problem is not all the time it's clear if it's considered bad, but in general, the Torah said if the non-kosher thing brought a good taste, you're not allowed. But if you got the taste, you don't eat the prohibited thing. If to eat the prohibited things, you're not allowed anyway. But if the non-kosher thing brought you a bad taste, I brought you, I think, an example about eating pineapple or mango or something that a person used. Let's say a person used a knife to cut meat and he didn't wash it for any reason. He cut mango with that. So these tastes are not good in a mango taste. The place when you will have the dirty knife that cut meat and for any reason you don't wash it, because normally nowadays people do wash between using to meat and those kind of things before they use vegetables and fruit, sorry. But let's say he didn't, I think it's considered noten ta'am nifgam. Like in my view, it's just, it don't bring a good taste, it's just a disgusting thing. So if it's disgusting, anyway, it's okay. The only problem is with, maybe I will explain more about the ben yomo thing. So why we have a difference between ben yomo and not ben yomo? What's the difference if I use this pan today, or it's past more than 24 hours, a few days ago? So Chazal said that we are talking now about maybe there is a taste of the non-kosher thing or the meat things to the dairy in our food, right? We're eating a food. We learned the first step was that if you got the non-kosher taste to your food, you're not allowed to eat it. Now the question is if there is a taste or not, right? But if we will remember that we said that if the taste is not a good taste, so it's kosher anyway. So Chazal said, we said that if you cooked shrimps in a pot, so the pot observed the taste of the shrimp. So now if you will cook rice, this rice will be also forbidden. But if 24 hours and more time passed, few days passed, even if there is taste that the vessel observed, this taste should be a rotten taste. Like if you left the pot outside and 24 hours, more than 24 hours passed, even if there is a taste, the taste is not good. Most likely the taste is not good anymore because a lot of time passed. So according to that, they say that if it's not ben yomo, bediavad mutar. This is why all the time we have a difference between ben yomo and not ben yomo. And we also have, maybe I will add it here, in short, another idea. If you wash your vessel with soap or any kind of chemical things, many understood that is, even if you used this vessel 20 minutes ago, if you use soap, it will make it as 24 hours passed. Because even if there is a taste, the taste swallow also soap, and a soap make this taste of the little bit that was swallowed in the vessel, maybe of a not good taste. Okay, so just to know that if you wash your dishes with not just with water, how like most of the people nowadays doing, it's make it more lenient in all those situations. Okay, like this why I think in my house where I came from, in my parents' house, we basically followed the Rabbi Ovadia in that. We had meat vessels, dairy vessels, and that's it. And we normally don't eat natural things with. I don't remember so many kinds of dishes that we had like natural things with milk. We didn't anyway, like we just didn't like, or we didn't know about omelet, for example, with dairy things. I don't remember something like that. But we didn't have like 3 vessels. I said, Rabbi Ovadia said, ideally you do allow them now, and I said that this is just if you cooked in the same 24 hours, and we do have a lot of vessels, and even if not, we all the time wash anyway our vessels with soap. It's not like just with water, khafif, like khafif. Okay.
Yeah, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make a difference what the plates or the pots are made out of? Like if it's glass, I know there's no problem. You can use it for meat and dairy. If it's metal, it's a much bigger problem. And if it's ceramic, you can't. It doesn't make a difference how much soap you use. You shouldn't switch.
So it's a very good question. And like me, I am trying to really explain the thing. So when you go to the bottom line, so yes, as a rabbi, you need to put in your conclusion all those things together, including the difference of the metal or the material. But here, when I tell you it's allowed, it's on all cases of the materials. If it will be, some said, and it's other subject important, that some material are not observing anything, and even if you want to use it on the same day for meat and dairy and and if you want, how to say, and not, it's, you understand what I mean? What our subject was now is the thing that if you have 2 steps, so you allow to cook a natural food, to eat it with like dairy or not dairy. In your question is there is some materials that even more than that. Like we all agree that, let's say if you take I didn't say that you're allowed to take the same vessel and to use it for meat and dairy, right? I just said that you don't need to have parv according to Rabbi Ovadia for most cases. You understand what I mean? You need to cook your dairy in your dairy, your meat in your meat. But if you want to cook a parv thing, you can use one of them, and you can eat it with all of them. But some materials considered not observing materials, and you allowed even to use them for meat and for dairy and for Pesach and not Pesach. And maybe I will go to it, but not right now, because there is Fardim, Ashkenazim. Some said there is difference in Pesach, not Pesach, like exactly like you said, ceramic. All the example you brought, they're very important examples. Here, there is another something we need to know called davar charif. Okay? The translation of charif from the New Hebrew to English, it means spicy. But from Old Hebrew, I don't think is the correct translation. I think it will be Ruth Atkan. נראה לי Ruth, you here. I think you will have it better than me. I think it should be like
It's more like something like that. You feel it like an acid, like you feel something on your tongue. I don't know how to explain it.
Sour?
It's sour.
No, you're muted.
No, I'm not muted.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so maybe make it like that. That oh, you're together. So oh, shalom. So if you again where I was, just a second. Yeah, so davar charif, it means when you have a spicy thing. So I said spicy is not just spicy. In halakha, it can be also sour or other those options. But Chazal said that we learned a few minutes before that if it's not ben yomo, if 24 hours passed, so you're allowed to not you're allowed. So if you cooked, even if it was a non-kosher thing, so maybe it's kosher because the taste become bad taste. And we say that if the non-kosher brought you a bad taste, it's okay, like after the fact. And Chazal said in bracket that if you use spices, sometimes the spices will turn it to become a good taste, meaning even if 24 hours passed, but you use spicy, like make it spicy, sometime it will make it good. I will not go to those details right now. I just want to say that there is a difference in this case between charif and not charif. So if it's not spicy things, so all what we said is exactly like we learned, okay? Even if it's ben yomo, even if you use the same vessel in the same day, and now you want to cook something natural and to eat it with dairy or vice versa. So I said according to Rabbi, you're allowed to do it even ideally. This is when you do not use spicy things, okay? You make your omelet just omelet. But if you want to make your omelet with onion, for example, or hot pepper, or all those kind of things, so you not allowed, okay? But this is now just apply for ben yomo, for the same, if you use this vessel in the same day. If you didn't use this meat vessel in the same day, so the Sfaradim are lenient about that too. And if you didn't use this vessel the same day, and now you want to use even spices and to eat it with dairy or vice versa, according to some, you do allowed. And just in bracket, in our synagogue, it's a different story a little bit because I have another reasons why I'm not sure I want it to be, because there is details about that and anything that complicated and people are making to anyone. I don't want, so this is why if so I told them not to use spicy when they use the meat things and we want to eat it with dairy, and also because of Ashkenazim, and so I just made a little bit more strict about that. But in your house, if you want to rely on Rabbi Ovadia and some Sfardim, you do allowed if you want. So like I said, if it's not spices, you allowed even in the same 24 hours to use that vessel to cook a natural thing. But if more than 24 hours passed, you're even allowed to use it for spicy things. Somebody has a question?
Yes, Rabbi, I have a question.
Yeah.
I just want to know if you have, like, for example, a jar of butter, like a jar of margarine.
I didn't understand what?
If you have like a margarine, which is like a plant-based, for example, butter, plant-based butter, which is like, it's not dairy and it's not meat. It's
Oh,
parve.
okay, margarina. Okay, margarine. Okay, now I
Margarina,
understand.
margarina, yeah.
Margarina.
Margarina.
Okay, sorry.
So you have this container and it's parve, and you want to, you're having a meat meal, and you're having bread, and you want to put the, you want to put the margarine on the bread. So then you take a meat knife and you put it in the margarina, and then you take the meat knife and you put it on the bread. Okay, so now you've used the meat knife, but it's all cold. It's all cold. But if you're at the table, I guess the question is, if you're using the same dish for a meat meal, and you're using, like, say, a meat knife that's cold, and then say the next day you're having a dairy meal and you're putting a dairy knife into the same margarina container to on the bread to serve during the dairy meal, is that a problem? Or should you have like a parov spoon that you take the margarina out of the container and put it on the plate, but you have to make sure the parov spoon doesn't touch the meat plate, and then you take the meat knife and spread the margarina on your bread, and the same thing for the dairy meal. You understand
Yeah,
my
good
question?
question.
You
Yeah,
understand
I
my question?
understand your question. I don't know if it's like related to here, but it's important. It's important question. I will answer you anyway. It's like a detail of basar v'chalav. So halachically, if it's clean, it's no problem. But meaning, if your knife is clean, you can use whenever. Not a problem. But many rabbis said that the problem will start if you will use like you will use your knife, you will use butter when it's really with pieces of butter or with pieces of dairy things, you will put it in the margarine. Now tomorrow you will take from it and you will have pieces, or the opposite or vice versa, it will be problem. So many said that it's better not to use, like they talk about salt in the halacha, and that time they didn't have salt that you pour like that, they were taking salt like that from their hands. So they said don't use the same vessel of salt for dairy and meat things because of the idea you said. So ideally it's better to have something in, or to have to have a dairy knife or a parve knife or a disposable knife that you will cut from that. But if you didn't do it, so it's 100% kosher, it's not like a halachic problem, it's more ideally not to be in a situation that you will use it when it's dirty, and people do it sometimes when they just forget, because you're in the middle of your meal and your knife, you just use it for dairy things, and it's this is white and this is white, people don't care so much.
So the best thing to do is to buy two margarinas and put that are both plant-based, they're parov, and put one like for dairy meal and one for meat meal.
If you put the margarine on the table when you eat and you use it, and you can use it with a knife that is dirty, so yes, it's a good solution. Or to bring a natural knife to use it, like meaning, for example, if you use meat, so you bring a meat knife, doesn't matter, but a clean one, and you just take the margarine from it. You know what I mean? Just make sure that all the option will be good. You understand what I mean? Either to have two margarines, either to use a natural knife. The problem will start when you use the knife you eat with and put it
back
in the
in the
margarine itself. Yeah, and this is a
double dipping.
Correct problem. Yeah, double dipping. Yeah, this is a word I learned now. Double dipping.
So just for example, it's one other similar question. Like, say for example, you're having a meat meal, but you're having rice that's parov with the meat meal, and you want to take like a parov spoon and put the parov spoon into the rice and to serve the rice onto the meat plate. So you have to be careful. I guess you can do that, but you have to be careful that the parov spoon doesn't touch the meat plate. Because if the parov spoon touches the meat plate, then because if the rice is hot and it's a meat plate, then how do you serve? Like, how can you serve the parov rice on a meat plate? Because if it's a parov, you can't take a meat spoon and put like a meat spoon into the rice, or can you? What's the way to do that?
So I think this is really goes to what we learned. So if you're talking about the plate itself, what's called meat plate, not plate that you right now have a dish of a meat inside it, just a meat placed in a meat spoon, no problem. Even if it's hot, you can use it, because it's like we said, if you it will go to exactly what we learned. Like, but the bottom line for me is ideally you're allowed to do it going by the Rav Ovadia. The problem will be if you do double dipping, double dipping, how you say it, I don't know.
Double dipping.
Double dipping. If you have your spoon that you eat with, and you put it in the, it's dirty with meat, like with what you eat, and you put it inside your plate with meat. You eat meat, now you put it, you dig it inside the rice, and it's the rice really getting, you even can see the colors and everything. And now you will eat this part of the rice with dairy. This will be a problem. So if you want to serve it, if you have another spoon, meat spoon, doesn't matter, that you just take from there, put in your plates, it's no problem. The problem will start if you will use it when it's dirty. So you can do it as in your, we say in Hebrew, like with your smartness. It's either you serve it not on the table, either you have, I think in Canada anyway, people put a spoon for the rice itself. People don't take with their spoon or with their hands or those kind of things. People are more polite, so it's even better also halachically in that case, because you don't eat. I didn't see in Canada people eat with a spoon of the things and put it in the rice and everything become the color of what they eat, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Somebody has a question? So I hope everything was clear. If you have any question about that or about whenever related, you can ask on the WhatsApp group, and I will answer when I will have time. Next week, I think we'll continue either to explain a little bit more about the Var Harif and the details about that. I said it just in very generally, and maybe I will go a little bit to the vessels, like Des remind us that there is like difference in the vessels. It's maybe also important to make a explanation about the vessel itself, the difference between glass and all in general. I will do about that maybe. Okay, so see you Bezrat Hashem next week. I am not sure if I will be on Tuesday on Zoom on real time. I'm not sure yet. So let's see what will be. So we'll noted you. So either or. See you. Have an amazing evening. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.